Hello, everybody, and how's it going? This was so good yesterday, and we had so many people tuning in that I just thought it would be such a wonderful idea to do the same thing all over again, like we did yesterday. Hello, and I note that a lot of you are beginning to type in already, which is great. But you may have to type it again, okay? Because here is the time for the infomercial. After all, what would an astrology video be without an infomercial? And so one of the things I wanted to tell you is there's a link in the window down below that'll take you to my astrological services page. What I can do today is I can take a brief look at a certain number of people's placement of Rahu, give some general things in relation to the karmic path in association with Rahu, and a little bit about Ketu. But really, if you want to schedule either a karmic analysis or one of my tier 1 or tier 2 services, which also contain a karmic analysis, we can go a lot more in depth in regard to these particular factors, because really just kind of doing it generally with this, I can only go so deep. In the karmic analysis, I take a look at the Shastra chart. If I've rectified your birth time, I can work with the houses. If not, I'm just working with the planets. And I look at the nodal axis there. In addition to that, I'm looking at the nodal axis in the Rashi chart. I'm looking at nakshatras, those planets are in, Shastra deities, so many different things. So if I don't get to you, or even if I do get to you, if you feel like visiting my astrological services page and scheduling something with me, there is a link in the page below. So let's get rolling. I'm one of those people, when I do this, I like to have a chart in front of me. So even if I don't have your chart, I like to have a chart so I can kind of transpose the planets into those particular positions. Okay, so the first person that put something in, which I'm going to touch on their particular placements. And by the way, I'm wearing the headset again today. I've got a fan over there, and the fan's a little bit noisy. This person has Rahu in Capricorn and Ketu in Cancer. Let's talk about that particular placement first of all, before we go into some of the areas that that might play itself out in. Now, when there is Ketu in Cancer, individuals tend to learn a little bit about being rigidly controlled on an emotional level. And I just kind of want to give a little bit of information in regard to the fact that nothing that I'm saying today is in any way meant to be construed as judgment on your particular personality. It's just judgment on the placement of Rahu and Ketu themselves, right? So basically, the person finds it hard to enjoy their emotions, right? Because of things that they fear in life. They fear difficult things happening to them. So they tend to be very rigidly emotionally controlled, because they feel that that's really the best way for them to deal with the difficulties that may arise in their life, right? Is if they're emotionally controlled, nothing can get to them. On many levels, they may even feel as if they are being detached, but detachment is something that's very different and something that naturally happens over time. Now, when Rahu is in Capricorn, that makes the individual try to create a type of structure in their life that is based around structuring their life so difficult things don't come into their life. And generally what's going to happen when you have Rahu in Capricorn and Saturn in Sagittarius, as the individual was stating, is that some of these things may play themselves out in childhood in relation to distance with one's mother. Another thing that can happen is the individual themselves goes through an experience where there's a lack of security or lack of stability in their life, and that can also be something that affects them in early childhood, or even something that affects them, affects their children, so to speak. basically, one of the keys with Rahu in the 5th is individuals with this placement need to follow their own inspiration without any need for validation for their path or validation for who they are. They just need to do it because it's the right thing to do. With your particular placement, when you follow this path, there can be some difficulties that come into your life. You may have lack of stability or lack of security entering your life. Is that a sign that you shouldn't follow the path that inspires you? No. But it is something that's testing you to see if you're going to follow the path that inspires you. And it's also trying to teach you that on many levels, whilst you might think while you are following your own particular path of inspiration, that if you set things up in a specific way, you're going to be able to avoid difficulty. That's a way of living life in a rigidly controlled manner without really experiencing the pleasure or the joy of life. So ultimately, it's trying to teach you about the joy of life and especially about enjoying your emotions. And you can't take your emotions and just compartmentalize them in one particular place. Emotions need to be experienced, both the good and the bad. Okay? So let's see what else we've got in our window here. I'm just going to look in these particular factors at the first one that pops up. So what I've got is a Taurus Ascendant. I'm going to write it down so I can look at these things. Rahu, Pisces, Jupiter in Pisces. Okay. And let's go look at my chart. Okay, so a Taurus Ascendant with Rahu in Pisces. You have the, in terms of house placements, almost the flip-flop of the individual previous that I was talking about. Let's talk first of all about Ketu in Virgo and Rahu in Pisces, so we can understand a little bit about that. So the Ketu Virgo mentality, I was actually talking about this yesterday. It relates to thinking that if you put a lot of effort or energy towards something, this is one way of looking at it. If you put a lot of effort or energy towards something, then you're going to be rewarded. And usually the illusion is that the more effort you put in, the more you're going to get out of it. And many times this may relate to in previous lifetimes, you followed the path that inspired you. You attained a certain level of success from following that path, and you kind of integrated in your mind that if I want to be successful like I was previously, then what I need to do is I need to follow this particular path of putting a lot of effort in, right? The only thing is that pleasure, that joy that you experienced in a previous lifetime for following your own inspiration was somewhat incomplete. You likely wanted to, equally increase that level of enjoyment that you were able to have. And in this lifetime, you may think in your head, well, just like it happened previously, if I do this, things are going to work out okay. Only thing is, they may not, or they do not. And so you find yourself in a position where you're putting a lot of effort into a situation and you're not getting very much out of it. Now, when you have Ketu in Virgo, obviously you're going to have Rahu in Pisces. So with the Rahu in Pisces placement, the lesson is one of surrender. Why follow the path that inspires you sheerly for the sake of getting something out of it? Because when you stop getting something out of it, you're likely not going to feel like you want to follow it anymore. And so then, are you truly inspired by something? And if you are truly inspired by something, then it's just a natural part of you. And you just need to do it, even if you're not getting some, reward out of it. Okay, or not receiving what you want for your efforts. The fact that you enjoy what you're doing and dharmically it is who you are, that in itself is meant to be the thing that you get out of it, the pleasure of fulfilling your purpose, right? The only thing that happens with this, Rahu is here to teach you, like I was saying, it's here to teach you about surrender in this lifetime and to just do what you're doing because it's who you are. The only thing is when you're not getting the feedback that you want for the actions that you're putting forward, it can find you in a position where you go, well, maybe I'm doing the wrong thing. Then you begin to question your beliefs. You go, am I really doing the right thing? I seem to be going through all of this, hardship and difficulty, and I have this vision for the future, and I'm founding this vision for the future on the things that I really believe in. The only thing is things really aren't working out, or maybe they do work out, but they don't work out to the extent that I want them to. And so are you supposed to give up? No, you're supposed to give up on the mental attachment that success is going to come in some external form from the efforts that you put forward. Instead, that success comes from inside of yourself, with just being okay with who you are, knowing you're on the right path for yourself, and letting that alone be validation for the path that you're on. Okay, so just a reminder, if you're really enjoying this particular series of things, you can also schedule an astrological consultation with me, and we can look a little more in depth about the placements of Rahu in your chart. Okay, so I'm just going to look at the first one that has popped up. Okay, and I may have to kind of scroll up and down the page because usually they are popping up quickly over and over again, right? And I can't keep up with it, right? So I'm just going to scroll up. All right. Okay. All right, well, somebody had put something here, but they were incomplete on the information. So let me remind you, we want to know your ascendant. We want to know what sign Rahu is in, and we want to know what sign Rahu's dispositor is. I started writing somebody's down, but they didn't give me the information that I needed. Okay, so I'm going to look at the next one that I'm seeing. All right, which is Ascendant Cancer, Rahu. Please, people, don't give me the house that it's in. Give me the sign that something is in, okay? Jupiter, and I'm having to scroll up in the fourth, because what ends up happening is I have to kind of, try to juxtapose it all, because I'm not just doing this in my head. I'm actually looking at things. Okay, so we've got Rahu in the sixth in Sagittarius, and we've got Jupiter in Libra. Okay, Rahu in Sag. Okay, let's talk about K2 in Gemini conjuncting the 12th. Let's talk about K2 in Gemini first. I think, therefore I am. Well, what are you when you don't think? Do you cease to exist? Equally, what is belief, right? Is belief something that's up here, or is belief something that's in here? That's the question, right? Belief really needs to be backed up with conviction. Knowing that it's the right thing for you. It needs to be subjective, not just objective. People who have K2 and Gemini have usually had a previous lifetime that was built around some form of intellectualized paradigm or intellectualized belief system. In other words, they weren't sure about something. They thought that they had a knowing about something. So with that, you've also got K2 conjuncting the 12th. And K2 conjuncting the 12th people, they tend to do better in life when they're able to go at things alone. When they're thrust into situations in the stressful worldly existence of life, they tend to get stressed out themselves. It's difficult for them to think. For you as an individual, you are comfortable within your thoughts and comfortable within your intellectualized beliefs, and you were fine with walking a path on many levels that was separate. But it was on some levels an incomplete system. You began to doubt things. Maybe you even began to feel a little bit lonely and a little bit isolated, and you maybe felt like you didn't identify with the world at large and the things that were going on. That leads us into a position where the next thing that the universe needs to create for you is Rahu in Sagittarius. Rahu in Sagittarius is about exploring one's beliefs. You used to think this, but now you're not quite so sure. And so basically, with that going on, you're trying to develop a belief system that allows room for all those things that you can't explain or couldn't explain in a previous lifetime with your intellectualized belief system, right? The only thing is as you do that, you're encountering a world that you're kind of thrust into. It's no longer that you can kind of go into a space of retreat and be with your thoughts, be with your feelings about your thoughts. Instead, you're having to take that individualized headspace out into existence and deal with the stress of existence in association with that. As that begins to happen for you, basically, so you've got Jupiter in the 4th, and that's in the 11th from Rahu. Many times this may play itself out for you in areas of your material security, how you feel about your plans for the future. There could also be some significant events that happen in your life around an elder sibling, if you have one, or your mother, right? And some stressful things that happened in association with that. It could be some difficulties surrounding your mother's relatives and things along those lines, and you having to work out your belief systems in and around those particular things. Okay, let's take a look at another one. Okay, so let's look at the next one that popped up, if I can keep it on the screen long enough to write it down. Okay, so we've got let's scroll up, Cancer Ascendant, Rahu in Taurus, Venus in Libra. Okay, with Mars. I'm not necessarily going to comment on education because I'm not here to read your entire chart just based on your Rahu and K2 axis. That would be me giving you some incomplete information on your education. But what I can do is I can read something on the placements that you've given me. Okay, so it wouldn't be a good idea for me to do otherwise. All right, so let's take a look at this one. So the K2 in Scorpio, Rahu in Taurus axis. Let's talk about that one. K2 in Taurus feels most comfortable approaching life with a degree of emotional strength. Okay, in previous lifetimes, that was something that you did. You walked your own path that felt inspiring to you as an individual, because that's generally one of the things that tends to happen with the 5th, 11th axis. And you walk that path with a great degree of strength in your life, right? The only thing is generally where you have K2, even though there's a level of detachment, even though that can give a tremendous amount of emotional strength, it doesn't mean that emotional strength is wrong. It means that your security or your stability is incomplete, because we also live in a material world and we have to encounter material existence, right? And people who have K2 in Scorpio, quite often, they have, I see you're giving me your Mars placement too. So Mars is in the 12th from K2. So due to some loss, even though you found yourself, and due to some loss which kind of shook you to the core of your emotions, so to speak, you still try to go inside of yourself and deal with things on that particular level. The only thing is that didn't necessarily give you the security that you were desiring. Okay. In addition to that, sure, let's touch on education, but I don't know if you're in your Ketu Dasha, so this may not apply to you in terms of education. Okay. But there can be concern over getting your degree, because that's also a K2 in the 5th thing. There can be concern over getting your degree, whether that's going to work out and whether your future is going to be stable in regards to such. Okay, but primarily with K2 in Scorpio, it's about individuals who like to go inside of themselves, like to be strong within themselves, and they've been hurt previously, and you've been hurt by, you know, kind of trying to trust in your emotional strength, and you encountered potentially a lot of material instability in your life as a result of this. And so again, with Rahu in Taurus, what begins to happen is the universe is trying to teach you a lesson in regard to not denying material security. People with Ketu and Scorpio can be afraid of material security because they understand at one level that material security is illusionary, or it may be there for a short period of time and then eventually it's gone. Okay? And so they don't trust it, because you've likely had an experience where you had some stability and it was taken away from you previously, so you don't trust material stability, or you go, being materially secure is unspiritual, but it's not. The stability that's offered you by the material world is something very spiritual. There's spirituality in every single thing in existence, right? So there begins to develop a need for material security. You can't just fulfill yourself through internal strength or internal security. Your path is incomplete. Ideally, it's about finding a balance between those two different things, being secure inside of yourself and allowing yourself to experience the enjoyment of material security as well, without overly attaching to such, because yes, it is elusive. The only thing is you likely feel torn in your heart in relation to all this, and in relation to whether you should think that there can be any shred of spirituality and material security, or you may feel somewhat afraid to go out pardon me, into the material world. One level, you might want to stay in school, right? And so subconsciously, you might be delaying your own degree if you're wanting to get a degree. Those are some things that may play themselves out in your chart, but nobody's going to validate that walking a particular path for you is right, other than you doing that yourself. And in order to get to that space where you can recognize that, you just need to consider it all. You need to consider that there is no, let's put it this way, bad side of material security, and equally, just being emotionally strong is not always a good thing. So you need to find a balance between those two things. So just a reminder, we might have time, pardon me, to do one or two more. Just a reminder, if you would like to know something a little more in depth, because again, I can look at your Shastayamsha deities, and we can get a little bit more in depth in regard to what this is all about for you, where previous lifetimes have taken you on a certain level, what you're dealing with in this lifetime, and how to confront it. Just to tell you what the karmic analysis contains, it has a complete analysis of the karmic, the Rahu Ketu axis in the Shastayamsha chart, looking at the Shastayamsha deities. If you have a rectified birth time, if I rectified the birth time for you, then we can get houses involved in the equation, much like I'm doing right now, only a little more in depth, because we'll be incorporating nakshatras, Shastayamsha deities, all sorts of things. Then we look at the same factors in the Rashi chart. After that, I look at some self-related factors to see how you're approaching all these things in this particular lifetime. And we finish it all up with looking at something called the Moksha Graha, This is found by using the same technique that helps one to identify who the Ishtadevata is, or the chosen deity. So that in association with what Rahu and Ketu are trying to teach you marks the path that you're meant to walk in this particular lifetime in order to fulfill your karma. And you can find out more information about this on my astrological services page of my website. There's a link below, but also if you visit AuthenticAstrology.com, you'll be able to find it. Okay, let's see who we see next popping up in the window. Let's see if we can find some different ones, because I've given lots of similar ones. Okay, so we're seeing Leo Ascendant, K2 in third, if I can keep up with it all. Lost it already. Bear with me, everybody. K2 in third. Rahu in the ninth. So for Leo Ascendant, K2 in Libra. So again, please, if I have time for one more, please don't just give me the sign placements, even though those are helpful. Please also give me, I'm sorry, don't just give me the house placement, give me the signs that they're in. It just makes it easier, okay? Because you have to consider that I'm kind of visualizing your chart in my head. Okay, Leo Ascendant, K2 in the third. Oh, you know what? Somebody has not told me I can't do that one, because you haven't told me the position of Venus and you haven't told me the position of Mars. So it's back to the drawing board. Please read what things say at the top here. It says Lagna, Rahu, and Rahu's Dispositor. Okay. So without that, I can't look at what you're asking me. All right. So I'm going to move on to another one. We've got, let's see what we've got here. I've already looked at that one. Let's find a new one. Leo Ascendant, Rahu, and Sagittarius. Let's find one that we haven't done before. That's a good one. Okay. So I will say again, please, if I say something, because, you know, I'm straight reading the placement of these things in your horoscope. And I'm going to say some things that are honestly the things that I would see, but it is in no way, shape, or form meant to be taken as criticism. As a matter of fact, it is meant to be something that helps you on your path and helps you to understand yourself. And I just want to find a few things. Okay, so we've got somebody, and this will probably be the last one that I can do. We've got somebody with Capricorn Ascendant, Rahu in Leo, and the Sun in Gemini. All right, so let's take a look at this. Okay, Capricorn Ascendant, you've got K2 in the second house in Aquarius. So most likely in previous lifetimes, you found yourself in a position where you were most likely able to receive the approval of your peers or validation for the path that you were on. You followed your path, and equally you were able to get somewhere with it. You were able to be successful. You were very resourceful on your path, and you have a tendency to be resourceful in general. You always want to stay busy, always want to stay on top of things. Equally, family was a big focus in your life in a previous lifetime. With this particular placement, as a result of K2 in Aquarius, you're used to having validation from people, validation from the collective, validation from groups of people, right? And so Rahu in Leo is going to place you in a situation where you have to walk the path that you're on without any validation from other people. You have to walk that path just because it's the path for you. Now, does that mean you're not going to have any validation from people? No. It just means you need to move away from making that the sole focus of the situation. The type of attention that you would like to get for your path in general is one that is going to be delayed coming into your life due to the fact that you've got the sun placed in the 6th from the Ascendant and in the 11th from Rahu. So the success that you want out of life ends up being delayed, and that kind of tests you in life. But in order to make this work, you're going to find yourself in a position where, whilst on one level you need to be determined, on another level you need to not place yourself in a position where you're pushing too hard to be successful. Instead, that's just going to make you feel like you're putting a lot of struggle in. Instead, you just need to do it because it's something that feels right for you. It's almost like living your life as a living sacrifice for your creativity, or living your life as a living sacrifice for the things that feel right to you. And in doing so, being willing to accept the limitations that you encounter in life, knowing that what you're doing is something that's appropriate for your own well-being, giving yourself the validation that you want from those things. Okay, people, I do want to say thank you for the opportunity to do this again. I may not do it for a while, but thank you for giving me a chance to do it again, and thank you for entering your information in. And please, 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 please feel free to visit my astrological services page. We can schedule something that's a lot more in depth in this regard. Take care for now. Bye.